Okay, so
Hang on,
well, do you want me to start or are you ready?
not quite. It's just waiting.
It says it's being live streamed.
Yeah, setting up your custom streaming
Oh,
service.
you're doing Fathom again, are
No,
you?
no, no. This is the streaming on YouTube.
Yep, it says it's working.
Yep, we're on now.
Okay. Well, this meeting is open to the public and press and being live streamed, so I welcome everybody. Um, do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, we do. We have apologies from Kerry Wallace, the finance administrator.
Thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest and requests for dispensation?
No.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, minutes of the last meeting. Do I have a proposer on those minutes? Thank you, Ms. Liz Smith, and seconded by Councillor Hannon. Thank you. Can I have a vote on that then, please? Thank you very much.
That's resolved.
What, the actions arising?
No, it
Or
was just saying resolved so that people can hear it's
okay.
actually.
Okay. Did we want to have a look, see if what actions were coming from the last meeting? Colin, are you able to
Yep,
share?
I'll share the screen.
Okay. Nothing. Can we go to page 21? Okay, thank you.
So those are all action points, Chair, regarding the budget process. So
Yeah.
that will happen in due course.
Okay. Any questions on those minutes? Okay, thank you. So public forum, I mean, we don't seem to have anybody from the public, so we'll move on to number 7, RFO report and part 1, Haverhill Town Council budget report, 31st of August 2025.
Can everybody see their own copy, or do they want me to put it up on screen?
I mean, if we can put it on screen, then at least people can look at it as we go through.
Yeah, that would help. Thank you.
Okay, Chair. So this is the report for the period ending 31st of August. The numbers basically, just a reminder, in the end columns, minus is a good sign, non-minus not so great. I mean, the key thing here really is the commentary that I've added. So yeah, I just want to say, generally speaking, if you look at the kind of 98,000 ahead of where we expected we would be, in hand, I think that is flattering to deceive to a certain extent. We are fine, but we're not that fine, and that's basically down to looking at the budget profile of how money is spent during the year, rather than just saying what this particular snapshot is. So trying to see, what did I say? Yeah, so events, by the time, obviously, 31st of August on a receipts and payments basis means that any invoicing that came in after that date isn't covered. And we know there was some invoicing, and we also know that whilst Haverhill in the Park was very, very close to budget, we know that some of the other events crept over simply because the costs they've pushed the envelope too much. We're going to need to look at that in the budget. I think differences. I think that I'm just going back to the art centre bar, and the coffee bar. I think generally speaking, we're pleased with where they're at in the course of the year. Although both the bar and coffee bar are showing as over budget at the moment, the bulk of their performance is in the latter half of the financial year, and they're actually as good, if not better, than we'd expected them to be when we look at their past performances. Councillor Burns produces a really useful weekly report, and we can line that up to show month ends exactly where we were last year, the year before that, and that we're actually at the Arts Centre we are performing better than the curve last year. So that's all fairly promising. And also the kiosk was literally just finishing on the 31st of August, and is in a far better place than it was last year. Members will remember there was quite a vigorous discussion between councillors on the merits of opening more often, rather than limiting it to just the times when we knew that we had a chance of selling more merchandise than it cost us to actually be there. The actual sales aren't terribly different, but they've been condensed into less days, and therefore we've not had so many days where the staff are standing around doing nothing, which was the case last year. So I think those councillors who advocated for being more realistic about the opening times at times where we were at least breaking even, rather than providing a service of being able to provide ice creams to little Johnny on the way home if he was the only person going to get an ice cream. That's really proven to be the right thing financially. So, I mean, obviously, in terms of whether people would rather we lost money and were open more often, is a perfectly valid argument, but probably not so much from a financial point of view.
Colin, just as a question regarding the kiosk, do we know how many days we may have lost this year due to poor weather or whatever, where it was just no point opening?
We can count it up and see. It wasn't terribly many. I don't think there's any automatic way, John, of doing that than just actually running your finger down the page.
Yeah, because on the kiosk, I actually do put comments about whether it's bad weather and all that sort of stuff.
Yes,
There are. I'm desperately trying to find the my spreadsheet where kiosk. Let's have a look. Yeah, for example, Friday the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th of August was closed. I put mostly good weather. Most of the time, remembering it's only open on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But there's not that many days. There's another Friday there back in August, a Thursday in May. But of course, we didn't open until whatever date it was.
It was the late May bank
holiday. Yeah, so I'm trying to look for it here. No, I don't think we lost very much. We had some very bad days. For example, on the Sunday, which I think was the Haverhill show day. Terrible weather, and they took £3, but
Yeah.
that was before the rain came down.
And I know it's not necessarily for this committee. It was just something because I know we've discussed it before. And did we manage to work out what the staff will do? Because obviously we're paying anyway. Are we managing to utilise them elsewhere on those days?
Not necessarily elsewhere, because elsewhere will all be rotated in anyway, so there won't be necessarily somewhere we can put them instead. But there are clean downs and other tasks that we can get them to do. Generally speaking, and I don't know whether we can't necessarily tell from there whether or not they closed early and put hours in the toil book to repay back later.
Sure. No, sorry, it's not necessarily relevant entirely. Just I know these sort of things were raised previously, so I was just thought I'd ask the questions.
Yeah.
Sorry, John. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, just add to what Colin just said, is I do know of occasions where they have shut early and the two staff have gone back to the arts centre. I think one was for training in the cafe area, and one was actually going to train at the box office. So I don't think necessarily in that case toil was used.
Okay. Thanks. Has anybody else got any questions or points on this at this point?
We could talk about the zone. I don't know. So.
Yeah, we are. So, yes. So the zone is just a little bit different. We were looking at the figures, and if you look at the zone, it's actually better than it's making a surplus at the moment. But if you look at the actual numbers, it's way under on income expectations, but even further under on expenditure. So I've looked in that in a bit more detail, and that appears to be the cafe and the entrance fees are down. The parties are actually performing about the same as last year, but last year, you may recall, we were all very worried about how the parties were performing. So actually, the fact it's still just performing just as badly. It's just that year on year, it's now, of course, comparing itself to a bad year and basically matching it. A lot of the savings on the expenditure appear to be where we're being really careful with use of staff hours, and where staff are sent home because the place is not busy. The staff have a choice. They can stay and we will find them work to do, or they can forgo their pay and leave and just don't bother finishing their shift. But if they choose to leave, then they don't get paid for the hours they don't work. But there's a very clear choice they're given, so they opt to go home early and forgo some of the pay. So that's making some of the difference. But I also think when I budgeted very pessimistically, so I may have overestimated the cost in terms of staffing cost as part of the reason that the staffing budget is quite far under. But obviously, the fundamental issue we still have is that there is the performance is continuing to not improve. I have a meeting tomorrow down at the zone with some key personnel to look at what we can offer for young people, the children who are too tall or too old to go onto the soft play, because we are hearing a lot of anecdotal evidence that people are making choices that, because if they've got two children and their eldest can't go on the soft play, what is that older child supposed to do? And therefore, parents are telling us, well, we don't bother going to the soft play anymore because only one of them can actually do anything. If there was something for the other one to do, it would mean that we could still go. So we've got a meeting tomorrow to discuss what could possibly be done about that. Um, and I think in terms of any further actions, as far as it's concerned, I think we'd probably want to um, address that in a closed session.
Okay. So just, and again, I suppose, yeah, when you're saying the closed session, because I just had thought, so you were saying the cafe takings were down.
Yeah, and again, what the staff are hearing is, little Johnny says, "Can I have some chips and nuggets?" And the replies, the mum will say, "Oh, we're going to go to McDonald's."
Right.
So it seems to be that there is still this McDonald's influence that people are, because it is just literally just up the road from the zone.
And is there anything we can do to reflect on that or change that? Or, I mean, if it's takings are down, is it that we need to offer a cafe, or do we just offer some very basic drinks and little snacks as a lit that and that's it?
I think we can have, I think, we need to look at all those things really.
Okay. Yeah. I won't push it. Councillor Burns.
Yeah, the only thing I think Colin's alluding to it. I'm looking at the data. I think my system probably could analyze it even better because we're now putting, for example, the number of people ordering things is X per week. But what I'm not, we are now recording the number of people who actually come through the door to attend parties. So in terms of people coming through the door, but you're dead right. The people are going elsewhere for their food. Equally, I one of the things I have suggested is whether we look at what we're offering on, because the menu is very comprehensive, and we may be offering too much, or perhaps not the right things. And I think things like customer surveys, that sort of stuff, would benefit there. But I think a lot of this is behind closed doors sort of stuff.
Yeah, we did analyze the figures because the data that Councillor Burns' system can produce shows, what foods are not being eaten. So we did actually remove some of the foods at the bottom of the list of things that people ordered. Rather sadly, they were the healthiest options available, but they were the ones that nobody was having anyway. So it was no harm not bothering to offer it anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Dead right.
So again, so if the parties have sustained from where we are at the moment, from last year, they're not getting any worse or any better. And did you say that the soft play is not being used as much?
Well, the entrance fees are certainly down. And we don't think that the experiment we had over the summer of saying sort of, the sunny days free really had a great impact because it was introduced quite late, and therefore there wasn't really it didn't really have any great impact in terms of one way or the other. But yeah, it does seem like the numbers have not kind of come back up again as we'd like to. So we've got the meeting tomorrow, and the real focus is on what we can do to try and attract more people in.
Sure.
But in terms of anything else, then that's for another time, another place.
Just last thing on this is, and again, it's not to necessarily discuss now, but obviously for us to, have we done any comparisons or looked at how well the leisure centre's doing with their soft play in comparison? I don't need any answers now. It's more looking as a comparison to say, okay, if they're doing well or if their numbers are down, then potentially is it the soft play height idea is down entirely? If they're doing quite well, then what do we need to do? I mean, that's just my thoughts because obviously they're the other. I think they're the only other the other possible accommodation that's similar, isn't it? Is there another one anywhere else?
Well, it's the only other soft play provision I'm aware of in Haverhill. It's quite a different proposition, and it's interesting in that the discussions we've had over Vision 2030, actually, if you then compare that to the offer at Abbeycroft, you can see a much closer correlation to how things are done there to how we're suggesting things should be done. And again, it comes down to the venue that we're in precludes us from using quite the same operational model. I can ask, but bear in mind it's a commercial organisation effectively, and they may not be willing to share that data.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
they
Yeah.
may be willing to at least tell us whether their experience with the market up and down
Yeah.
is similar to us.
Thanks, Colin. I appreciate that. Councillor Burns.
Yeah, just to add to that, one thing is you should also consider, apart from the McDonald's effect, is actually, I think you'll find takings in all range of businesses are massively down over the last 12 months. Some of the businesses I speak to say they are very, very concerned for their own state of business, and that's got nothing to do with play areas. It's all kind. I think it's whether it's cost of living, if that's what you want to call it, or people worried about what's going to happen in like the budget in next month, all that sort of stuff. National insurance costs going through the roof. I think that's just generally people just don't have the money anymore, or the spare money to play around with anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to go on to
yeah.
the next, the balances?
Yes, yeah.
Or does anyone else have any other questions on that section?
Thanks, Colin.
Okay, so yeah, balances are they're all fine. We're keeping the Lloyd's Treasury well. I think what might be worth me doing is swapping share the screen share to a different document. Let's have a look. Where is it? Okay, right. So this is the Treasury view. Just make it a little bit bigger. So August to August, you can see that the 2 million line, we are a bit higher, just a tiny bit higher than we were last time round in terms of the totals. And as you can see in terms of the broad yellow, that's the 32-day account. So we're again juggling nicely. We're benefiting. I think that the Arts Centre, its turnover is strong, so that we're finding that we are not at this point in the cycle having to pull down as much as we might have done in previous years. So you can see it's quite a little bit more there where we'd shifted money into our instant account. We're not doing that at the moment. We're keeping that fairly low, and we're, the majority of our money we're keeping earning interest as strongly as we possibly can. So we'll continue to keep that going. The light blue at the very top is the CCLA money, and that's generally speaking pretty unchanged. I can I can show you. There's probably not a lot of point. There's not a lot to see on some of the other stuff, but that's basically where that is. So the balances are strong, and if I go back to the RFO report. Right. So yeah, that's where we're at. Are there any questions on the balances?
No. Okay. Thank you, Colin.
Debtors. Kerry's looked at these figures and basically, as is normally the case, it's just intercompany transfers and owings between the community trust and the town council. So there's no particular concerns there. Then going on to do you want to go on to the community trust, which is item 8?
May as well. Yeah, we've covered the debtors. So yes, please. That may as well.
Yep. So yeah, we're again, everything's pretty well fine here. We I think there are things that we should notice here, is that the town hall, we're going to be spending some money. If you've been in recently, it smells like a carpet warehouse. We're just having carpet laid throughout the ground floor public areas. There's about to be works in what was the freezer room, which councillors may not be familiar with. But if you go along the corridor past the toilets and the kitchen and up the stairs and round the corner, and as if you're going to go back down the stairs, there's a door off to your left, which takes you to the back staircase for the dressing rooms. But when you first go through there, immediately opposite it is another door. And that's what we call at the moment the freezer room, which is where it's ambient and frozen store for the Arts Centre kitchens. That is all being cleared out this week into the kitchen, because we're removing the two big turbo ovens that are in the kitchen at the moment. And instead, all that stuff's going to be moved in there. And that old room, then, the freezer room, is being turned into a third dressing room, which will be very useful. So, for instance, those who attended planning this week will be aware that we shared the studio with the outfits for centre stage, because they were using the studio as a dressing room for just two people. They'll be able to use the third dressing room, and that'll release the studio will be used less often as a dressing room. So that'll be useful. But obviously, there's an expense to kit that out. There's then going to be some work just before Panto. We're redoing the staircase, the main staircase, so that'll have new carpet and new nosings. Those of you who've been up and down there will notice the nosings are looking a little bit tatty, and they're going to be rather snazzy. We've for those of you who've visited Provincial House and seen the shiny gold coloured nosings that they've installed there, which look very theatrical, we thought that was quite a suitable thing to just make it all a bit snazzier for people going up the stairs to the auditorium. So all that work's happening. So by the time Panto comes along, the whole of the downstairs flooring would all have been redone.
Thanks, Colin.
So there's going to be some expense going on there. Haverhill in Bloom, sadly, I think we'll all agree it's been an exceptional display, and I have to, as West Suffolk have said the same thing, and lots of other people have said, I think on social media, somebody said it must be the best in Suffolk. Unfortunately, that was really down to, apart from the hard work from West Suffolk watering the plants, it was also the green fingers and choosing of the plants by the owner of Plants That Grow, the garden centre out on the road to Finchingfield. Unfortunately, they're retiring and closing the business, which means that ourselves and Claire, and probably others too, will need to find new suppliers. So we're working with West Suffolk and others to locate a new supplier for this winter. They're not even doing the winter planting, which means we got no notice. But it is mean financially, we think they were offering us a remarkable price, particularly given the exceptional job they did. So I think that we will have to allocate further funds to Haverhill in Bloom in the new financial year. I am talking to the marketing department about how we might be able to market that for sponsorship, to see whether we can at least neutralize any extra costs by bringing in some sponsorship. I think that's eminently possible, but starting from a low base, it's harder. Once people get into the routine of sponsorship, they may be more interested.
Colin, can just the Clements Centre.
Yep.
I know we've talked about it, and it's having a new roof, isn't it? Is it, or partial new roof?
No, we're talking in energy and sustainability about the need to decarbon the heating
Right.
for that. So, but it's a knock-on effect. So, we're looking at air source heat pump or a pumped air system to heat it up. But the advice is if you're going to do that, then one of the things you have to do is insulate the roof. The advice seems to be that it's going to be better to insulate the roof by putting a layer of insulation on top of the roof and a new roof on top of that. And we are talking also about solar power on top of the Clements. And obviously, we don't want to put solar panels on top of a roof and then get told the roof needs replacing. So there's a kind of domino effect. And that's where the discussions about the replacing the roof have come from.
So the figures here, none of those costs have actually come out yet. Then I'm assuming.
Oh, gosh, no, and they couldn't come out. That would be subject to finding some funding from somewhere. I think the total cost is approaching 150,000.
Right, and obviously one of the things, if I remember rightly, that they said that the people doing the work or would be doing the work, I can't remember, but the whole building would have to close, from what I remember was being suggested.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're talking about potentially all the radiators, all the pipe work, or new ducting going through, the ceilings coming down. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of work would be going on.
Yeah, and it was just obviously if we've not even got that started yet, that we're not expecting that to appear in potentially this year's.
Won't be in this financial year.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I think Gary's got a meeting with Miles, who's the technical advisor for this project. I think I saw an email that's coming up quite soon.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think there's not a lot more to say about that. Balances are all fine, and debtors, as always, as I was saying earlier, the interbank between the two companies is where the main debtors comes from. So,
okay. So, any questions on any of that from anybody? Councillor Helen. Can't hear you, Pat. Unmute yourself, Pat.
Sorry, yeah. Just on the last slide on that community trust, right at the bottom, and it says owing 14,000. Just do you know what that figure of 14,000 is? That the normal figure, or is that a different figure than normal?
no, that's fairly normal. The town council owes the community trust 14,800, and the community trust owes the town council 10,700. And so we run an interbank account, and at some point we will pay, as a council, we will pay 3,000 something or other to the community trust to settle the bill. We usually do that once a month. But at the time the snapshots are taken, we're always we're both the community trust and ourselves are each other's biggest debtor. We're both, of course.
Thanks. Any other questions on that one? No. Okay. Thank you, and thanks for that, Colin. I appreciate that. So, yes.
If it's useful for councillors, I just wanted to give a very quick update on something. We have had the numbers through for the tax base for the financial year 26-27. It's a little bit disappointing. If I can share a screen. it's not the tidiest screen because it's a working document, but it will just sort of illustrate one of the issues we have. Yeah, okay. So effectively, the tax base just on the bottom left-hand corner is growing by basically 89 dwellings. So that's quite a bit less than last year's growth, and it does show that, you know, in terms of house sales, new houses being built, I think there must be quite a similar sort of tidal flow in the other direction of where people are going on to benefits that qualify for council tax relief, because it's kind of standing still. Just Chair, Councillor Burns got his hand up.
Councillor Burns.
Interrupt you, Colin. My only thought, I asked this a few years back when they were going on about tax bases, and it was primarily when the loss of the grant subsidy that we got at parish council level. I wonder if it's worthwhile actually finding out from them, okay, you've got 89 on the tax base. What's it on the actual number of dwellings that have been occupied in that time?
So
have you got those figures?
Yeah, let's go on to Series 1, Series 2. So the strange, I hope it's changed its name. So basically, the you've got the green here.
Yeah.
Is the tax base, and blue is the number of dwellings. So it's a change in the number of dwellings. So as you can see, it's gone from the tax base is now kind of like sort of the change in the tax base is slowing down compared to the number of dwellings being built. And just on the left hand side screen, you see the ratio of the electorate.
Yeah.
To the valuation, the number of dwellings, has gone from 1.7 people per dwelling down to into the 1.6s. So I'm not sure quite what this tells us. We can see that in the period under review, 2017 through 2027, it's 26 rather, is 1,000 extra dwellings, and the tax base has gone up by basically the same. So it means that nobody has come off nobody has come off benefits at all in that time, or the people going on to benefits is actually keeping pace with the number of houses being built. Yeah, I'm very suspicious that there's a lot of people who don't go onto the electoral register and do their damnedest to stay below the radar so that their houses don't appear. So if you're a landlord, that's one person. So an adult gets a single adult getting a discount. But if actually that's a house for multiple occupation, then we should be getting the full council tax. I'm just very suspicious of how we seem to be absolutely stuck with really poor performance on our tax base.
Yeah, but what I was insinuating, you got nine, whatever the figure was, about nine, call it 90, wasn't it? Was that the figure between
89 additional?
89, okay, 90, call it 90. We built a hell of a lot more than 90 houses in the last 12 months.
Well, exactly. Of course, if people are going on to council tax benefit,
I understand that, but that's why I'm saying it'd be worthwhile asking West Suffolk. Okay, I understand your tax base, but tell me how many houses you've got on your council tax system.
It's there on the left-hand side.
There's more than 11,900, though, isn't there?
Not according to the.
Well, I don't believe Anglia Revenues anyway. They've had so many mistakes. Look what happened when we were doing the business rate thing. They had no idea what businesses were running.
Yeah, I had a very robust discussion with Rachel in the finance department at West
Well,
Suffolk,
yeah.
and she's also, of course, she's on the board of Anglia
I'm
Revenue
director of
as
Anglia
well.
Revenue. I know. Yeah, I know.
So yes, and she was absolutely adamant that they are, that their collection rates are very, very good. But I'd be interested to see whether or not the recent electoral roll kind of
Election thing.
uh, uh, there's been officers from West Suffolk going round basically doing a census, trying to get more people signed up onto the electoral register. I think there's likely to be a significant correlation there, because if you look at the growth of the electorate, which is the orange bands there in terms of growth, it's not, it's all over the place. It's people not people have come off the electoral register. I mean, at one point it was 19,700 and fell back to 18,900. So you'd have to ask, where's 800 people have come off the electoral register in 1 year? And in terms of expansion, there's only 1,300 more electors, 1,300 more electors than there were back in September 2016, 9 years ago.
It's wrong. Not be wrong. I mean, I can give you an example. Sorry to interrupt, Chair. I'll give you an example. There's a certain house near me. The people have lived there for nearly 40 years and they're not on the electoral register. And I've reported it several times. Nothing's been done about it. So, that's just one person.
And the thing is, if they're not on the electoral register, then and only and just have one person says they lives there and applies for the discount, then the whole point of the electoral register really is, one of the things that can be used for is to demonstrate actually there's more people living there.
Yeah.
And if you think how many private rented houses there are, there's a very big transitory population in Haverhill who can just sail by under the radar.
Yeah.
I would really like to see a push on the knocking on doors and seeing how many people are actually living in households where they're claiming that there's only one person there. But
is this something to raise as part of another forum, Colin? Because obviously, I mean, John's point there is quite valid. How accurate is it? And you're raising a similar point. I mean, should we be discussing it as a town council and posing some questions to those outside to say, look, we really feel this needs looking at?
Well, I mean, it's something that perhaps district councils could pick up, because I mean, at the end of the day, the taxpayers of Haverhill who do pay council tax are they, unfortunately, because of the very unfair law, the way that England and Wales work, is that it's that load of carrying the people who are not paying council tax is carried within the parish. So there's people in Haverhill who are paying far more than they would have to pay in council tax in order to make the books balance. Now, yes, there will be people who are genuinely, more now than ever because of cost of living crisis, who are legitimately on benefits, are not able to pay council tax. But that's all the more important that everybody else who can does.
Councillor Hannon.
Yeah, we had a full council, West Suffolk Council, last week, and apparently the council was going to look into HMOs, and I think this would be very good as well, because they're not only going to look in HMOs, they're going to look at overall. And I think what you're just saying is that we should look into the electorate as well. I'm just wondering if we as a town council just write a letter to the portfolio holder of housing, which is Councillor Richard O'Driscoll, just stating the fact that, you know, we're sort of losing out on it. Is there any way that we could be part of that, looking into HMOs, be part of that? Because obviously HMOs, as you say, there might be registered one, and there might be 4 or 5 in there. I think it's 5, isn't it, before registration? So I'm wondering if you could write on behalf of the town council, just to sort of add, and obviously we as councillors, as West Suffolk councillors, will also get in touch with Councillor O'Driscoll as well.
I'm happy to do that, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Anything else?
No, not from me.
Well, I do appreciate it, and I think that was worth knowing. And I think perhaps something to come back to as a later discussion, maybe even for the full town council, because I think that was quite worthwhile. James, I know you've sat there very quietly. Are you happy with everything? Anything you'd like to ask before we close off?
Only do you need to vote to formally put me onto the committee? And equally, can you vote on something over a Zoom call?
Chair, do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
No, because the membership of this is appointed by full council, and no, the voting over Zoom is recommendations only, unless the current bill does go through Parliament, allowing for meetings that are remote to actually make decisions. Members may not have checked their email late this afternoon, but Vicky sent out an updated agenda for full council to include the review of committee membership to enable Councillor Teixeira to be added onto committees where there's space. And also, I think, speaking to Councillor Davis-Smith, there may be others who want to just have a review of which meetings they're on or not on and want to be on. So yes, that'll happen in a week's time.
Okay, thanks. Right, anything else from anybody? No, well, I do appreciate that. Well, date of the next meeting is Tuesday, the 20th of January, 2026, or to be confirmed that is the one according to our agenda. And at 19:48, I